Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the online launch of the UK EITI Annual Review 2020. My name is Matt Ray. I am a senior official in the UK Government's Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, and I chair the group that oversees implementation of EITI in the UK. Thank you for joining us. The Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative is the global standard to promote the open and transparent and accountable management of oil, gas and mineral resources. EITI was established in response to the problem that in too many resource-rich developing nations, resources are poorly managed and wealth that should be accruing to local communities and citizens is instead being lost through mismanagement and corruption. EITI attempts to tackle this problem by setting a standard for transparency and governance and assessing countries against that standard. A core part of the EITI process is that oil and gas, mining and quarrying companies and government agencies publicly disclose what payments are flowing between them. And that process is overseen by a multi-stakeholder group comprising in equal measure representatives from government, industry and crucially, civil society. The process aims to ensure that the public have access to good information about the industries, particularly concerning their economic and tax contributions. And increasingly, we also see the EITI helping foster transparency in broader areas, such as the ultimate beneficial ownership of companies, gender equality and diversity, and environmental issues, including climate change. The UK has been implementing EITI since 2013. The report we have published today is the 6th we have produced since then. This launch event has a number of novelties. It's the first we are hosting online. Whilst the pandemic has forced us all to adopt to new ways of working, some of these have brought unforeseen benefits. Running the event in this way allows a wider audience, and I know we have stakeholders from all parts of the UK and overseas joining us today. It's also the first time that we've published a report in the format of an annual review. Historically, we've put out reports focused on the payments data that we collect, reconcile and analyse each year. This year's report is different. We are setting out not just the payments data and a summary of the state of the industries, but also the broader achievements of the multi-stakeholder group and how we are progressing against the EITI standard. To mark the publication of this report, I'm really pleased to introduce 4 speakers to you this morning. We will be hearing from Lord Callanan, the UK EITI Champion and Government Minister for Climate Change and Corporate Responsibility. Martin Gordon, Lecturer in Accounting and Finance at the Robert Gordon University, Aberdeen, and a Civil Society Network member of our multi-stakeholder group. Mike Tolan, Sustainability Director at Oil and Gas UK, and Nigel Jackson, Chief Executive of the Mineral Products Association. This morning's event will run until 11:45. We may have time for a short Q&A at the end. Do use the Q&A function if you want to pose a question. If there isn't time to get to your question, the team will do its best to follow up with you afterwards. We have been having a few technical issues this morning, but I'm hoping that I'm now able to hand over to our first speaker, the UK's Minister for Climate Change and Corporate Responsibility, Lord Callanan. Minister, are you with us?
Anti-corruption strategy. The UK was a prime mover in the establishment of EITI in the early 2000s and has been a major supporter ever since, continuing to support its work internationally. EITI, as you know, plays a key role in improving the governance and transparency of natural resource extraction around the world. Recent research suggests that EITI's work to open up the books strengthens trusts between industries and communities. It holds governments to account for sometimes huge sources of revenue, and it improves national investment climates. As such, I am encouraged to see that more countries than ever before, now 55, have committed to EITI implementation. This will help to create a more transparent business environment across the extractive sectors worldwide. Supporting EITI elevates the UK's global standing as a leader on transparency. It enhances the UK's reputation as a trusted and a reliable place to do business, and promoting the EITI principles enhances our ability to attract new investment from overseas and open up new markets for exports. So this government remains firmly committed to implementing EITI in the UK. It increases the transparency of our own extractive sector, and it ensures that we are leading by example internationally. A key reason that we are implementing in the UK is to show leadership, applying the standards that we demand of others to ourselves. But there are, of course, in addition to that, there are real benefits for us too, as EITI helps to explain the ongoing role of oil and gas, mining and quarrying in our economy. UK EITI has now put on public record 6 years worth of verified data on the financial flows between government and industry, covering the calendar years 2014 to 2019. The latest data show total net payment flows of over £1.5 billion from in-scope UK companies to the UK government. Thanks to the work of EITI and as set out in today's report, we have public confirmation that the revenues are properly accounted for, both by companies and by government agencies. Our aim in establishing this data is to explain the positive contribution that the extractive sectors are making to the economic and social development of the country, and to demonstrate the industry's commitment to transparency and good governance. The extractive industries contributed a total of 20 billion to the UK economy in 2019. They employ some 60,000 people directly and support many more jobs in downstream industries and supply chains. And the sectors, of course, are also evolving in important ways. As set out in today's report, the oil and gas sector continues to transform and to reinvent itself, which has allowed a sustainable reduction in operating costs and in production efficiency improvements across the North Sea basin. There have also been significant developments in the mining and quarrying sector, including plans to reopen the South Crofty tin mine in Cornwall, where tin is projected to be a major mineral in new technologies such as in electric vehicles. There are also the 2 new lithium mine projects in Cornwall from Cornish Lithium and British Lithium, which should go some way to meeting the UK's future demand for battery production, including for electric vehicles. As we announced recently, we will be phasing out sales of new petrol and diesel cars and vans by 2030 as part of the Prime Minister's 10-point plan for a green industrial revolution. And in thinking about the evolution of these industries, we must of course consider climate change, the impact it will have and the mitigations that we need to put in place. As the UK prepares to host the COP26 conference in November 2021, the UK government is committed to leading the world in tackling this immense challenge. The transition to a low-carbon economy will mean that oil and natural gas will have a smaller role to play in meeting energy needs in the future. But as set out by the Committee on Climate Change, demand for oil and gas will continue for decades to come, even as we continue to build a low-carbon future. An orderly energy transition, maintaining UK oil and gas production, is crucial to maintaining that security of supply. It is important that the public understands that the activities and the revenue flows of the extractive industries through this transition, and here UK EITI can play a very useful role. Transparency around climate change risks and opportunities is a priority for this government, and in November 2020, the Chancellor announced that the UK will become the first G20 country to make disclosures aligned with the Task Force on Climate-related Financial Disclosures fully mandatory across the economy, with most of its requirements introduced over the next 3 years. He also said that the UK will implement a green taxonomy, which is a common framework for determining which activities can be defined as environmentally sustainable, and this is expected to improve understanding of the impact of firms' activities and their investments. I would like to see UK EITI forge a role in building public understanding of these important developments in the years to come. The new UK EITI website, which was launched in May this year, provides an excellent platform for making data on the extractive industries available and accessible to the public in a timely way. Looking ahead, we are of course looking forward to being reassessed against the EITI standard next year. The EITI's International Board has recently updated its standard and revised its process for assessing countries' progress. It's my hope that the UK will be amongst the first to go through this process, both to demonstrate the progress that we have made and to help EITI test its new approach. So to conclude, I would really like to thank our multi-stakeholder group and its secretariat for all the work that lies behind today's report. It is hugely welcome to have a forum in which representatives from civil society, from industry and from government work together to inform public understanding and debate. I also want to give a particular thanks to the 54 companies who voluntarily took part in the reconciliation of payments process this year. Given the challenges that I know every business is facing as a result of the global pandemic, this really was a fantastic response, and I would like to pay my appreciation to them. I would also like to thank each and every company that took part, and I hope that you will all continue to support this important initiative in the years ahead. We should be proud of what's been achieved in this report, which demonstrates that the commitment of government, commitment of industry, the commitment of civil society to extractive transparency in the UK, and let us all continue to strive to take that work forward. So I look forward to working with you all as we take UK EIT forward into 2021. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much indeed, Minister, for those remarks. And certainly I would echo all the thanks from the Minister to our constituencies in industry, across the industries and civil society. In the interest of time, I'm going to move swiftly on to our next speaker, who I think is with us. Martin Gordon, are you with us?
Morning, Matt. Yeah, I'm here.
Morning, Martin. So Martin is a lecturer in accounting and finance at Robert Gordon University in Aberdeen and one of our civil society network members. Martin, over to you.
Good morning all, thank you very much for joining and thanks for the introduction, Matt. I'm delighted to be here and to give you a view from the civil society members of the MSG. So I'm going to talk about a few of our highlights from the last 12 months and just outline a few things that we're thinking of and that we're going to pursue in the future in 2021 and beyond in terms of EITI and our participation in that. But firstly, I'd like to echo the thanks of Matt and Lord Callanan to the companies and also HMRC and our independent administrator, all of whom did a fantastic job under extremely difficult operating conditions with the global pandemic to pull the report together and get it all out and finalised so quickly and so efficiently. So thank you all for that. I think it really does demonstrate the commitment that there is to transparency. So in terms of highlights from a civil society perspective, again, Lord Callanan mentioned, but the website, I think it's great that we've now got this outlook and this ability to put our work out there, to create a dialogue with those in civil society and to put this data on a platform where it's usable by those in civil society and accessible, and where we can show our thinking and gather views from all those out there who are interested in these issues of transparency in the extractivist sectors. And again, giving some thanks, there were a number of people involved in the MSG in pulling this together who did a lot of work, but particularly Mike Nash and Nicola Wallace, you guys did a lot of work with the developers and got really into the nitty-gritty to develop the website. So thank you for that. It's looking very good. And although we're very disappointed we didn't have our live event and our live launch of the website in Aberdeen in April, you should now all be able to go up there and look at it. Another important thing, and another thing that we're very glad about in civil society, is that our discussions on the MSG have started to really include and start to really take seriously this issue of climate change and energy transition, and to sort of work out what UK EITI's role is in that. And at the global level, the global EITI are using this phrase, transparency throughout transition. And I think this is something that's really important, especially to people like me who live in Aberdeen and other resource dependent communities who depend on the oil and gas industry. We are, over the next few decades, going to see this transition to cleaner energy, which is obviously a vital thing for the health of the planet. And we in the EITI want to be part of that and want to ensure that the data that we're producing meaningfully feeds into this very important debate and gives the people the information that they need. And I think, even though we're moving away from fossil fuels, a lot of the transparency, governance and value issues don't necessarily go away. So when the government is awarding contracts for energy transmission, whether that's wind, solar, wave, whatever, civil society does still have that right to know what value the country's getting from this asset. At the end of the day, it's an asset that we have, and energy generation is something that we all have a massive stake in. So we want to make sure EITI is fit for that, albeit we think that this public interest there is in climate change presents a huge opportunity to us as well, as this issue is becoming more and more high profile, and the EITI can hopefully have more of a dialogue with its stakeholders around it. Other highlights from this year, we've had some very positive interactions with the Crown Estate. And I didn't know an awful lot about the Crown Estate before getting involved in EITI, but it turns out they own most of the coastline, and they do grant access to marine dredging sites in the UK. And being a slightly odd entity, really, it's unique to the UK, as many other countries will have their idiosyncrasies. They've been great in interacting with us and publishing more of their information and getting on board with the EITI process, and I think that's been really good this year. So we've had some positive interactions with them. Going forward, I think some of the things that we want to focus on, that we want to make sure we give due attention, are contract transparency and beneficial ownership. So this idea of contract transparency, again, becoming more and more important in the global EITI movement. We want to make sure that the contracts awarded to access resources, there is transparency around that, as well as the payments made from exploiting these resources. And the UK, we are taking steps in that regard. But going forward, this will continue to be an important issue as we look at decommissioning in the oil and gas sector, but also as we decarbonise, as I've said, with cleaner energies. The idea of how are these contracts awarded, what sort of value are there subsidies going with them, what are the long-term implications. This is a matter of public interest and something that we'll be pushing to ensure is taken into consideration, and I think the EITI movement is a very good one to do that. Similarly with beneficial ownership, knowing ultimately who are making these payments to our government and by proxy who are controlling our assets in terms of whether it's fossil fuels or energy generation through other means is incredibly important. And my colleague on the MSG, Joe Williams, is doing some important work with his organisation and others to look into beneficial ownerships of some entities and tracing back who ultimately owns these assets and who's making the payments to the governments. So beneficial ownership is another interest area where we're going to have interest, and we're going to be pushing for greater transparency into the future. As Lord Callanan mentioned, we're going to be one of the first countries to be revalidated under the new EITI standard, and we are very glad of this in the Civil Society Network. We think this is great. It shows the UK's commitment to be progressive and go forward with this standard. And the way that this new standard works, we feel is much better, this holistic measurement. So rather than a black and white, if you fall down in one area, you fail system, we've got this more holistic measurement that takes into account some of the idiosyncrasies in each individual jurisdiction. So, the Crown Estate, for example, and we're able to give a much more holistic picture of where we're at with the EITI. Albeit as a civil society network, we think we still need to be mindful. Where the old regime would kick you out if you got one small thing wrong, the new regime, there's potentially this issue where small things or things that appear small might fly under the radar, and we may achieve sufficient progress without addressing some of these small things. So we always have to be mindful that we are taking into account all these different payment streams and all these different government arms who receive payments, and looking at it from a local community perspective as well as looking at it in the round. Although this payment might not be massive in terms of the overall EITI, it might be something that's big to a local community affected by this particular type of extraction. Lastly, I would just like to sort of say that we as a civil society group, we are in a position now where we have some good representation, but we are always looking for dialogue. And we are always looking for more people to get engaged or affected by resource extraction in their local community. So if there's anyone on the call from the southeast where there's mining going on, or up in Aberdeen where there's oil, who wants to be involved, who's interested in these issues, please do get in contact with us. We have space in our civil society network, and in future and right now there might be opportunities to join the MSG as well. So if anyone's interested, please do give us a call or an email. But thank you very much for listening, and I'll hand you back to Matt.
Thank you very much, Martin. Conscious of time because of our delayed start, I'm going to hand straight over to our view from industry. First off, Mike Tolan from Oil and Gas UK.
The report and our efforts here as an industry collectively in the UK, we aim to set the global standard for the good governance of oil and gas and mineral resources. And indeed, from my own perspective in the oil and gas industry, the work that Mike Nash, Nicola Garrard and others are doing is a huge enabling force to us to represent the achievements of our industry here in the UK. And I hadn't actually realised this Anti-Corruption Day. For me, I've been focused much more on the launch today of the climate change report from the Committee on Climate Change, and indeed I think that will actually set some really interesting signals of things to come. Public transparency in what we do is vital. We are an extractive industry, but they're not our resources we are extracting. In the UK, we are extracting the nation's resources and have to give due recognition to that. So, of course, what we do needs to be both transparent, visibly transparent, and seen to be so, because without that, people may well see things which are not construed in a way which we'd want them to be. And our license to operate indeed is becoming ever more demanding of us as people start to value not just what we do, the jobs we create, the employment we create, the energy we provide, but indeed now increasing our investment as an industry in low carbon technologies and into a very different energy future. And the transparency that we offer financially, we certainly as a sector are seeking to offer similarly on the emissions that we create, and indeed our plans and our energy and our investment to cut those emissions already as an industry. So as we see for years to come, not just moving to non-financial disclosure, which has a financial perspective around it, but I foresee that in years to come, the EITI will collectively be able to report on what we're achieving, both in our own emissions reductions here in the UK, but also recognising how the rest of the world and other countries are achieving the same through similar means. So I'd like to thank you, Matthew, for your own support this morning, and indeed the Minister and the team. For us, for the country we've got through, but the other countries the report out now is great. And I know others will be trying to achieve the same under some very demanding circumstances. I'll pass back to you there, Matthew. My internet is proving a little bit challenging this morning, so there's obviously a lot of it around today. I can't blame that on COVID or BT. I'll say that one till later, but thank you very much indeed, Matthew.
Thanks, Mike. Yes, it seems to be catching. We have about 4 minutes left, so hoping that he is still with us and able to make a few remarks. To last but not least, Nigel Jackson, Chief Executive of the Mineral Products Association.
Yeah, Matthew, I'm here. I don't know whether you know I'm here, but I am. Okay, I'll crack on. Well, thanks. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for inviting me to speak to you on behalf of the mining and quarrying sector. And thanks very much for maintaining MPA as the industry member of the MSG. That's extremely important to us. Participation was very hard fought for. I was very to Minister Joe Swinson back in 2013-14 because I thought it was important that the MSG didn't just focus on energy, it needed to look at non-energy minerals. And I'm very grateful even today to Pat Foster and oil and gas colleagues for being generous by supporting our membership. Now, non-energy minerals and mineral products, they may be of comparatively lower value, broadly speaking, but the tonnages are very, very significant, and they are absolutely essential to the economy and our quality of life. And I think one of the roles that EITI is performing helpfully is helping make that link between our use of resources and their role in the economy, both within government and externally. And as we all respond to the twin challenges of resource consumption and global warming, that link's going to be tested all the more, and the need for consistent and reliable data will become even more important, as will transparency. And that's necessary so that both government and the minerals industry can be held to account, because building trust and confidence with stakeholders who are increasingly inquisitive, capable and demanding of the truth has never been greater. And I suppose for those of us who've been in the industry perhaps for far too long, we appreciate that we may never be liked, but we should at least try and make sure it's understood. Understood for the jobs and the value it creates and the contribution it makes to our civilization. For our sector, that 1 million tonnes per day of products each and every day, every year, is essential, and it represents the largest flow in the economy. And much as many would like, it cannot be wished away unless we choose to live without better homes, better schools, hospitals, roads, clean water and other strategic infrastructure. So whether it's aggregate, stone, cement, industrial mineral mines or quarries, ready-mix plants, asphalt plants, the data that's presented as extraction doesn't really tell the whole picture. We know our social and economic footprint is larger and it's deeper than the EITI process necessarily recognises. But right now, our main focus, other than recovery, is the environmental footprint. And like others, we've spent a lot of time investing in developing roadmaps to beyond net zero for the cement and concrete industry. And we've got a 50-year track record in looking after the biodiversity and creating net gain through the restoration and the management of our land holdings and quarries. So we think we can firmly confirm our commitment to sustainable development in all elements, and consequently the stakeholder interface is critical to that, and that's where we see EITI fitting in, and we are firmly committed to implementing the standards, encouraging our members to cooperate and provide the data, and we hope and aim to remain fully engaged with the process with colleagues. And I'd just like to congratulate the EITI team for getting the report away today in spite of all this, the disruptions this morning. I think they should take pride in their achievement, and we're certainly very proud to have been involved. Thank you very much.
Nigel, thank you very much indeed. Conscious that we are running over time, I will keep my concluding remarks short, and I'm afraid we won't have time for the planned Q&A. I think there's a consistency of theme across all our speakers this morning. A great desire to make progress against the EITI standard and our reassessment next year. Desire to move the debate into areas of stronger public interest, touching on contract transparency, touching on beneficial ownership, but I think most of all touching on climate change, environmental issues and the energy transition. The multi-stakeholder group will be looking at all those issues in the new year, and there is much to do. We continue to value the support from companies, government agencies and civil society groups for this important initiative. And we look forward to continuing the really excellent collaboration we have seen in 2020, despite of all the challenges that 2020 continues to throw at us. So thanks for your support. Thanks for joining us. this morning in a number of different Teams forums, and thanks once again to our speakers, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.